Welcome to the Embodiment podcast. This show is for you if you see the body as more than a brain taxi. It's for people interested in coming home to the body as a holistic aspect of who we are and how we live. Episodes contain practical tips, exercises you can take away, and interviews with specialists from around the world. I'm your host for today, Mark Walsh. So today we're going to look at selling embodiment. So this is a podcast with just me today. We'll look at this subject of how we sell, market, in fact, and sell this work. So first of all, when I say the word marketing or the word sales, notice what happens in your body. So the vast majority of my students from embodied disciplines over the years have difficulty with this. Actually, the majority. They may have a contraction, for example, some sort of mild fight-flight response when we use these words. Now, there's a reason for this. Many of us have seen some of the excesses of business, of advertising, for example, and I think rightly feel a certain disgust with that and have tried to get away from some of the excesses of kind of a business world putting a dollar sign on everything, as someone once said. So this is perfectly understandable. Unfortunately, if we can't have some basic skills in marketing and sell the work we do, we can't continue to do it, right? Unless we're somehow sort of privately funded or lucky enough to be born very rich or whatever. Actually, I don't think that's very lucky in some other ways. But anyway, unless we have unusual circumstances, we, as embodiment professionals, and I'm talking to all those of you out there who are yoga teachers, dance teachers, martial arts teachers, whatever, if we don't have some basic skills in this area, we can't make a living, okay? So we can't keep doing the thing we love, we can do it as a hobby. So it means we're probably not going to be that good at it if we do it as a hobby, because just the number of hours you can practice. But then also, we can't actually help many people if we can't continue doing it, we can't get it out to people. So there's a session I do at the end of the Embodied Facilitator course, Embodied Yoga Principles, quick plug, where I teach people marketing. In fact, I do this in all my courses that are over a day or two. We do a little bit, at least, on marketing and how to sell this work, because otherwise my students can't do it, right? For me, this is the missing piece. In many courses, you learn a skill, or it's, restorative yoga or tango dancing or whatever, but then they don't teach you how to sell it, how to incorporate that into your work. So I always added this on, and weirdly, I got several times I've done this, I got sort of standing ovations from students, and it's been marked as one of the most useful pieces of the course in the feedback. And this is strange to me because I don't have a background in marketing. I learned these skills because I had to, running a business. I wanted to keep my head above water. I wanted to pay my rent. And I just learned some basic things. People kept telling me, oh, you're a marketing genius. You're really great at this. And I was like, not really. And eventually I realized I was sort of more like the one-eyed man in the land of the blind, and sort of have grudgingly admitted that I have a certain talent for some of this stuff. And I'm able to help people with this. So, and now when I mentor people, this becomes quite a big part of it, is helping them with this sort of stuff. In terms of my qualifications, as I said, absolutely nothing academically, no marketing qualifications. I have for the last 11 years now run a business, and my sole source of income is an embodiment training business. So I learned a lot of these selling to the business world. So I sell leadership and stress management courses in business, less so these days, but that was the main part of my business, at least for the first 5 years. I did a corporate anger management session just yesterday, actually. So I still do a good portion of that. I also sell to coaches who are a little bit more alternative, but not necessarily sort of big embodiment people. And then I sell to yoga teachers who are in the embodied yoga. This is the third company I own, who are within that sort of embodiment world. And actually they're interesting case studies because they all need different things, which we'll come to. So in this podcast, I'm going to give you some models and some practical tools. Just going from terrible to okay is enough for most people to run a business. Yeah, it's enough for most people to keep their head above water. They're not, like me, they're not trying to become marketing gurus. They're not trying to earn millions and millions of pounds, perhaps, but they want to keep doing what they love and they want to get it out to people, to help people. Okay, so certain things that I've found in a short space of time, it's be about 30, 40 minutes, short space of time, that are reliably powerful for helping students with this. And I've really seen students transform their businesses, their incomes, with a course called Purpose Black Belt, which was really helping people with this as well. So, really help people using these methods. They do work. All right. So first one, the frame. So there's a sort of psychological side, a practical side, but before we do either of those two things, it's the frame of what people think of as marketing. I often describe it like this. So if you've got a sandwich, telling people who are hungry that you've got a sandwich and that sandwiches help with hunger, that's all marketing is. So we want to differentiate here between ethical marketing, I sometimes call it Jedi marketing, and unethical or Sith marketing, for those of you who know Star Wars. So the people think that all marketing is a Sith marketing, which would be things like lying, creating false needs, trying to motivate people through fear, using stereotypes, manipulating people. So I really get why people wouldn't want to do that, and that's against their values. And I'm with you on that, because that's so much of what we see marketing doing in the modern world. We've lost actually the basis of what marketing is. The actual fundamentals of it is actually a very beautiful thing. So not only is it not unethical, it's actually an act of love. So I did a video you can find on YouTube called Marketing is Love, and it explains this in more detail. But the basic idea is if you're helping people meet their needs, that's a loving thing to do. You know, if you know your product, your service does some good, and I'm assuming you're integrous, ethical people out there who, you know, are pretty sure that your dance class or your martial arts class is helping people. You know, it's pretty obvious after a while, isn't it? If you get the feedback that you're genuinely helping people, to let people know about that and the ways they can benefit from that. Come back to that in a minute. The ways they can benefit from it. That's a beautiful thing to do. Yeah, you wouldn't keep the fact that you had a sandwich a secret from a hungry person. I'd actually turn this around, saying not learning marketing is evil. It's a strong statement, but see if my logic stands up. To not learn the basic skills of getting the word out about how you can help people, how you can meet their genuine needs, how you can enrich their lives to add value in their sort of business speak, that's actually a very violent, ugly thing to do. To not... It's very selfish, I would say, to not learn these basic skills, which you can learn in, 30 minutes, some of the basics for sure, and a few hours just to learn a little bit more. So I turn it on its head. I say to my students, how dare you? How dare you not learn this stuff? How dare you be so selfish to not put yourself out there in the world? Bit radical. Again, see if there's a hole in my logic. So first thing is to differentiate between ethical and unethical marketing, the Jedi and the Sith marketing, to see marketing as an act of love, and to realize that, if you have stuff holding you back, that's really your shit to deal with if you want to be a kind, ethical person. So completely turn around the normal perspective of marketing as a sort of necessary evil or something like that. Quite the opposite. Marketing itself can also be a very beautiful spiritual practice. And the reason is that marketing relies upon things like empathy and courage and creativity. This is the basis of good marketing, basic good sales, top level sales. A student of mine who was a salesperson in doing multi-million-pound technology sales. I said, Steve Savides, if you're out there, hi Steve. I said, what do you think is the basis of good sales? And he just looked at me and said, listening, empathy. You have to understand your client, you have to understand your customer. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, that's beautiful, right? And if you see the marketing I put out there, it's generally sort of playful, humorous, funny. My idea is that anyone seeing my marketing, which includes this podcast, by the way, is enriched by it. Yeah, irrespective of whether they buy my products. They see a funny meme, they see a Facebook post, they listen to a podcast, and they're enriched by it, irrespective of whether they buy my product. Now, a certain portion of people seeing that, and the more portion, the better for me, and also so I'm not spamming people. The bigger portion, the better. That's another feature of ethical marketing, not spammy, targeted, yeah? It's actually enriching them. So everyone benefits from that. Rather than something, say, which is making people scared, like an advert saying, buy this bleach, or if you don't, your children will die. There's lots of that. Or buy this, or you'll be, I don't know, people won't love you unless you do this. That's the implicit message in a lot of advertising. Or ego enhancing, sort of narcissistic, because you're worth it, Again, not creating a psychic environment which is in keeping with my values, whereas I try and make the beautiful, funny, informative, useful stuff that I put out there in line with my values, irrespective of whether people then buy from it or not. Okay, so basic frame, basic distinctions, which you can help people. The other basic distinction I'd say here is the fundamental basis of capitalism is a beautiful thing. in capitalism, two people willingly trade something. So unlike in the Soviet system where farmers had guns put to their head to take their corn or whatever, people deliberately say, you know what, I'm going to win more from doing this. So two people create a win-win. It's like, I've got apples, you've got oranges. You know what? I've got enough apples, you've got enough oranges. It's better to have some oranges as well as some apples. It's better for you to have some apples as well as all your oranges. So we trade some of them. Yeah, and money essentially is just a way of simplifying that. So now, I'm not saying there's no problems with the system or there's no problems in the world. However, that basic exchange system, that basic voluntary exchange, creating a win-win, is basically a beautiful thing. So I want to highlight that in a world where many people demonize it. Okay, next up, let's look at the inner game. So there's a sort of inner and outer, the outer being basic strategy and marketing. But first of all, we need to look at our own embodied psychology. So most of us are screwed up around money. This is a huge taboo. I've covered this in a few episodes, but basic idea here is that money is a huge taboo. We all have a lot of baggage around what money is. So before we can make some money, it might be worth having a look at some of that. This is an ongoing process for me, and many of my students find that just cleaning up their act a little bit around this, bringing some awareness to our money stories and our money embodiment is very, very helpful. So at the beginning, I ask you to notice what happened in your body when you said the word sales and marketing. I invite you to do that now. So say out loud, or if you're in a very public place, maybe just in your head, in your first language, the word money. Say it a couple of times and notice your body. Money, money. You can use cash or, another word if that helps. Notice if there's any kind of fight, flight or tension response there. Now say the name of someone you love, not someone dead, not someone you're arguing with right now, but just someone you find it very easy and pleasant to have a good time with. It might be, I might say my niece, Jessica. Yeah. And then notice the difference. Again, you may notice, actually, it is a little bit different from when you said the word money. You can then say, money, See if you can't bring a little bit more relaxation to the word money in your body. And this is a process you can do when you handle money, when you give or receive money, when you ask for money from a client, the centering, look at the centering, listen to the centering podcast for some basic stuff around this. Now, this is very quickly just showing you the idea. There's also loads of other money awareness raising exercises you can do. Martin Aylward, we had on the show, did a good podcast on this, talked about how we can raise awareness of our patterns, like how we spend, recording spending, noticing the body. Whenever you give money or take money, there's often somatic patterns of grabbing or throwing money away, for example. On my courses, we do exercises like we pass around a big wad of cash and notice the response in the body. Sometimes I'll rip up a £20 note and we notice the response in the body. Sometimes I'll give away a £20 note or throw one out the window. And all sorts of fun responses from people can be revealed. Another simple one is just to say money is. So say money is, and then just whatever, like freedom. Money is scarce. Money is power. And just keep doing that exercise and see what's in there. And you'll almost certainly reveal a whole bunch of stuff on money, that you have ideas around money that's there, and these are embodied, of course, like everything. So revealing some of these money stories, there's loads of stuff out there on money stories. We had Evangelos on talking about money archetypes of money. There's loads of ways to explore this, and a lot of it's psychological. There's not much from an embodied point of view, except for this 5 rhythms teacher, Greek-American guy we had on. So very little, except for me and him, I think, doing this stuff. So anyway, we start to reveal some of the money patterns, bring some mindfulness to some of these areas can be extremely helpful in my experience. We also use embodied yoga principles. So we have giving and receiving and containing postures, for example. These are 3 main postures around money, 3 Hindu gods for those more esoterically inclined. And we can look at, how am I of giving money? How am I receiving money? I do little simulations where I'd use a big yoga cushion and say it's a big bag of money, and people respond in all kinds of ways. Another simple one is doing centering around pricing. So for a lot of people, this is a triggering thing. They don't know how to stay relaxed around pricing, which actually destroys trust in clients. Like, I don't know, £50, £40, £30, whatever you want. As opposed to that, actually doing some centering around it and then saying their price. Then we might try increasing their price, decreasing their price. Key thing here is not that you deserve a certain amount. Yeah. I mean, capitalism doesn't really care what you deserve. It's not moral and it's amoral in that sense. It's not you do or don't deserve it. Some people can have stories around not deserving money, but that's almost equally toxic as the entitlement of I do deserve it. So I wouldn't recommend either of those as a frame, actually. I'd sort of stay with the primary amorality of the capitalist system, and then it's just about your business to get okay with that if you've got these stories like... they come out like therapeutically. Like I've revealed one, like I grew up with this story, like good people aren't rich, rich people aren't good. Yeah. My wife's from a Ukrainian family, and even though her parents are relatively rich, her grandparents are actually in various famines and things like that. And, it's really poor back in the day in Ukraine in Soviet times. And, she's got a scarcity in her system in how she snatches money. So, we make a joke of it now. We kind of bring awareness to that. This sense of not enough, that's very, very common. You'll see this around food as well, like countries that have had starvation, maybe like Jewish populations, Irish, Polish, Ukrainian, you'll see this. It's quite different from somewhere like Norway, where there's like a sense of enough money and they haven't had starvation in a long time. So pretty interesting to reveal some of those patterns through examining the small gestures you make, through looking at body patterns during giving and receiving money, cash points, whatever it is, and bringing mindfulness, bringing awareness to that as ever. And we can apply other models to it. Like we can apply the 4 elements as 4 ways of selling in the body. Ultimately in sales, people are buying you, right? So like that centered calmness can be really, very helpful in terms of building trust, adapting your sales to the embodiment of different people. So, earthy people are going to want to take their time buying. They're going to want to know all the facts and figures. Air people just want to know it's fun. They want excitement and fun. The fiery people are like, look, just tell me what it can do. What's the price? The water people need a lot more connection first. Listen to the 4 elements video and you can apply that to sales pretty easily. It's a good typology for thinking about how you are in your sales and marketing, and how, the people you're selling to are. And there can be big differences with this. Like I tend to be sort of airy and fiery in my sales. Other people might be much more earthy and watery. That's okay. Like we all don't have to do the same marketing activities. I might like to produce a lot of content, for example, because of that embodied typological tendency I have. But other people might write, long considered blogs once a month that are popular, but they, it's just once a month they put it out. Whereas I'd rather put out 5 Facebook posts a day, So we should match our marketing to type to some extent, I would say, without using that as an excuse. Okay, so that's some of the psychological side. If you Google purpose black belt money mindfulness, you'll come up with a whole bunch more stuff on mindfulness of money. Next piece here then is just the basis of sales. So maybe you've heard of a sales funnel. That's a key thing we're going to look at. Let's start though with the absolute fundamentals. So what, who, and where. If you understand this, you can do marketing. Yeah. If you've got some of your personal blocks out of the way, you've dealt with some of that personal sort of, stories around money and baggage and shadow around money, then marketing's really simple, actually. So what do you sell? Saying this in terms of benefits. And I invite you, if you've got time, to pause the podcast and write down now what you sell. So if you sell yoga, it's not yoga you sell, hatha yoga that you sell. It might be relaxation. It might be fitness, health. There's different things. It might be the sense of community in the yoga studio. Yeah. So what do you really sell? I think there's a good example by this from Tad Hargraves, who does marketing for hippies, which I highly recommend. He's a great person. This feels really accessible if you're a bit more alternative. Marketing for hippies, Tad Hargraves. So he talks about someone who helps parents train their children to go to bed. And it's like, what are you selling? It's like, well, you're selling getting a sex life back with the couples. You're selling an hour to have a glass of wine and watch some Netflix. You're selling a bit of sanity. You're not just selling getting the kid to bed. You're selling all the consequences of that. So what are the benefits of what you do? People buy benefits, they don't buy features. So for example, if I'm selling embodiment in the business world, they don't give a shit about embodiment. This is where empathy comes in, actually. We need to realize, we need to put our own ego out of the way and our own obsession with what we do, because most of you, like me, are a geek for what you do. You put that out of the way and say, what does my customer actually benefit? How do they gain from this? If they don't, you shouldn't be selling anything. You shouldn't be selling your money. They will probably be telling you it might not be quite what you think. So, for example, let's say you run a yoga class, you can grab the yoga students at the end and say, listen, you guys have been, coming regularly now, you keep coming back, keep paying your money, what do you get from this? and listen to what they say, and their words. We'll come to this later. But the benefits part is the key thing here, so that you really get what people are buying, because they're buying the benefits, not the features of the fact that it's even your qualifications, just what's the benefit talking about that brings. So what exactly do you sell? Being crystal clear on that is very important. So if I'm selling a stress management workshop for a corporation, for example, I'm not saying, hey, this will help you be less stressed. I'm talking to the HR manager. I'm talking about employee churn rate. I'm talking about KPIs. I'm talking about the cost of hiring new employees. I'm talking about the benefits of employee engagement. Notice if that's all weird language to you, it's because it's their language. That's the language of HR managers. I literally subscribed to HR magazine because I knew nothing about business when I started working in business. I didn't have any business family members or anything like that. I never really worked in a business. I was from non-profit sector and working with children myself. So I had to learn their language. I had to learn what a KPI was, or a churn rate was, or discretionary effort was. And so I was able to put the benefits in the language of my client. Yeah. So it really takes us to the next piece, the who. So the what, the benefits, the who, and this is, intimately connected. Who's your work for? Yeah. So often people will say everyone, which is a huge mistake. You need a niche. You need to have some people that you're aiming for so you can deliver better. In the same way as benefits, right? Like people say, well, different people get different things from my class. And I'll say, yeah, but the method of what you're doing follows the aim, really. So even though someone might get relaxation when your primary aim is spiritual growth, that's a side effect. And if you want to aim it most effectively, you need to be very clear what the benefit is that you're actually aiming for. Yeah. The same with the group of people who you're after. So it doesn't mean you're going to exclude people outside your group, but you can most effectively find and talk to, which is the who, the where, the last part, once you know the who. So once I know that I'm targeting HR managers, because they're the people that actually buy training, I can more carefully talk in their language and talk to their concerns. Yeah, I know also where they hang out, like HR conferences or HR magazines or HR groups on Facebook or whatever. So being really careful about the who, not trying to make it for everyone. I sometimes say like a good model for marketing is a romance. We'll come to this with the sales funnel. But you got to know if you're straight or gay, right? If you're at a party and you're straight or gay, you got to figure out if you're straight or gay and who are the other straight or gay people if you're trying to find a date, right? That's pretty important information. So knowing who you're after. The power of niching is also that you can be, think of it this way. If you saw a shop in the street, which is butchers and also tailors and also bakery, would you trust them? As opposed to if it just said bakery, yeah, you'd probably trust them less. Equally, if I saw a shop and it was a yoga studio and it was like yoga studio for people with a bad sense of humor who have also done martial arts and do podcasts, I'd be like, fuck yeah, that's my yoga studio, right? So it can really speak to people's concern. Going for everyone will end up with no one. I know this is kind of counterintuitive. You want to go for everyone, do not. Be selective. Marketing, if anything, should turn people off. There's different ways to do this. I mean, it's like when you walk in, like if I walk in a really posh shop in London and I look around and there's no prices on anything, there's kind of a snooty guy there, I immediately know it's not for me. It's not meant to be for me. I should feel at home there. That's the point. They've done a good job. Yeah. So you should be putting people off with your marketing. Now, I tend to do that by what I call heads on spikes and, things that scare people off and very provocative things. The reason I do that is that I don't want people on my courses who don't have a sense of humor or who are really politically correct, for example, or are super body beautiful and take life very seriously. They're just not going to get on well. You can have the words just slipped my mind. You can have a model of the sort of perfect client. And sometimes that's a real client. Like we had a guy come to our courses and we said, we want more of him. And then we realized we actually kind of had two markets for Embodied Facilitator course. There was alternative people that were looking to work in business and business people that were looking to get more embodied. So we went, okay, we also need more Sallys and we need more Johns. So they're the two groups we're after. It was just two basic groups and we had to speak to those two groups and they existed in different places. That's the where, yeah. So getting really clear on who your perfect client is. In Embodied Yoga Principles, we do this in kind of a fun way. We say EYP is not for 4 kinds of wanker. So wanker's like a jerk. So it's not for body beautiful wankers. It's not for new age wankers. It's not for fundamentalist kind of yoga wankers, like, you know, people that just do one style of yoga and think that's the be all end all. And it's not for postmodern politically correct wankers. And once we've weeded out those 4 kinds of wankers, that leaves our audience. So that's the other way of doing it. But we could equally say who's our sort of prime person for that course. And actually on the last EYP we actually did that. We kind of got everyone to stand up and then said sit down if you're not from the UK or Western Europe, because there's an area we're targeting. Okay, sit down if you've only done one style of yoga. Okay, sit down if you and we really got clear as a way of teaching this concept who our kind of prime audience was, and it turned out it's like one person, and that one person I was already like loving. I didn't say this, but I was absolutely loving them as a student. So it's better for you as a teacher, and it's better for the students. You want those people who are going to love you and tell everyone about you and say it's amazing, not 100 people who think you're average. Yeah, you're much better off having 20 that think you're great. They're going to come to all your stuff. You enjoy teaching them. They get loads from it. They tell all their friends who are like them. Word of mouth, very, very powerful because of trust. So once you know the who, you can find out the where they hang out, the language they speak. So using their language, not your jargon, their language, whatever that is. And they might have their own jargon. You know, the HR people, for example, the yoga people have a certain language. So, and where they hang out. So yoga people, I was targeting yoga festivals and yoga magazines and joining Facebook groups on yoga. And I was using Instagram because yoga people use Instagram. Business people don't. When I was primarily looking for business people, I wasn't so much using Instagram. I was using more LinkedIn. So, you know, if someone tells you have to use Twitter or you have to use Instagram, whatever, a couple of things to ask. Like, one is like, does this suit me personally? Is it like matching my personality, or can I at least learn it to be good enough? If not, the second thing is, do my audience hang out there? Yeah. If not, why bother? So speaking to the concerns of your audience, and this can be quite subtle, like there was a campaign by the British government around helping old people not freeze to death in winter, kind of harsh, I know. And they basically talked, in this campaign, they were talking about keeping the heat in. And actually, old people in the UK, they don't think of keeping the heat in, they think of keeping the cold out. And that's actually less scientific perhaps, but that's how they think. And when they changed the campaign from keeping the heat in to keeping the cold out, subtle linguistic difference perhaps, you might think, huge difference in results, because all of a sudden they were speaking the language that these people, pensioners, actually thought of. So super important that. Okay, so the what, the where and the who. The sales funnel is the second basic concept you need. So really only 2 basic concepts here. And the sales funnel you can think of as a trust funnel or a relationship pathway. So business is romance. You start off, you have a first date, you look at each other's profiles maybe, then you go for a coffee, then maybe you go for dinner, then you end up in bed, and 2 years later you get married. Okay, so that's one way of thinking of a sales funnel. Increasing trust, increasing intimacy, and increasing commitment. Financial is one form of commitment. So I'll give an example of my sales funnel. Maybe you listen to this podcast, for example, or you watch a free YouTube video, or see a Facebook post. That's the top of the sales funnel, low commitment, 0 price, or it could be very low price for some people. So it's very accessible. You go, just give it a listen, see what this guy's about. Now, if you like me and my style and what I have to offer, you might go to the next thing, which is maybe download an ebook, for example. Maybe you buy an ebook. So this was a big thing for us. We realized we had a gap in our sales funnel from free to cheap. Yeah, so we started selling ebooks for £10. By the way, you can get those on my website should you want an ebook on centering or making yoga meaningful. So next thing, you can go to a small workshop, like I'm doing a 1-day workshop in Amsterdam tomorrow. And I'll be getting on the plane after this, actually. And in Amsterdam, people will come. It's a bit more commitment. They've probably heard about me. They've probably either recommended from a friend, or they've listened to podcasts, they've read an ebook. They're there at the 1-day workshop. If they like, they might say, you know what, this isn't for me, but thanks. Or they might say, this was fucking great. What's the next thing you do? And I might say, right, you should come to their EYP 4-day teacher training or 5-day teacher training, or you should come to EFC, which is our sort of big thing next year. Or then maybe they buy individual coaching for say £500 as opposed to the £100 for the thing. And not everyone's going down that sales funnel. Not everyone can afford to. My model I really like is just giving lots for free for the people that can't afford it as well. But some will, and that finances my life, that pays my rent, that also finances me to give stuff away for free, like, charity work I do in Russia or whatever. Does it make sense? So there's a sales funnel, a relationship funnel, a trust funnel, and all the way down, people are going out if they're not a good fit. So the best way to think about this is a good fit. So first thing might be gay or straight, right? Basic fit. And the next one is like, personality and sex life and whatever. Yeah. So increasingly you're filtering as well. Like there are people that on AFC, for example, we don't let 50% of people on the course. Now, if I've seen them on a one-day workshop and they were a nightmare and they sort of have, knew everything already, or they, just a complete pain in the ass, we just wouldn't allow them to come on EFC, and we regularly don't allow people to come on EFC, literally 50%, because we're really looking for the best people, for the best experience for other participants and for the easiest ride for us, and so that they then love it and then refer people. Yeah, referrals are both good because it's people coming with their sort of trust from a friend, yeah, but also potentially dangerous because they haven't earned that trust themselves, yeah. So generally, though, referrals are very good. All right. So that's a sales funnel, a marketing funnel, a trust funnel, a business romance. There's loads more skills we could say that are specifics, like how to do search engine optimization, or the best way to do Facebook, or the best way to do Instagram. I think the key thing is always to be giving value, to be talking your client's language, to be making sure it is actually a medium that your client hits. They're the basic principles. So I don't really want to go into the specifics of, say, how to use social media, which has been very useful for us, or SEO, the search engine optimization, that's Google rankings, which was very useful for our corporate work in the first few years. There's lots of ways to be good at marketing if you're working with these basic principles, making sure the embodied side isn't sabotaging you, the narrative side isn't sabotaging you. They're the key things. And a lot of it is just practice. A lot of it for me was just trying things, failing, noticing what works, trialing things, getting feedback, testing things out, going, oh, okay, that worked, that didn't. Getting better and better at it over time. So, I hope this gives you some basic tools. I also hope it gives you some hope. I've gone from someone that literally nothing about business to someone people say is a business guru. And I think that's a bit overstated to be, well, it's a lot overstated. But to have the basic skills, at least, that I'm able to keep doing what I love, to keep learning. I've got a good living. If I need to help my family with money, if I want to go on holiday with my wife, I can afford to eat out whenever I want. To me, that's real wealth, right? Like, I just don't think about money that much on my daily basis. I don't worry about hitting my overdraft limits. There's a real freedom in that, which I love. And also, because I'm good at marketing, I'm able to get this stuff out. Like, hundreds of thousands of people now have listened to this podcast. That's fantastic, right? That's fantastic for everyone. So, I hope this inspires you. In terms of resources, there's the Purpose Black Belt stuff I mentioned online. There's Working in Business, a guide for hippies, my little free ebook. Maybe you've seen that. It's on the Embodied Facilitator course website. There's Tad Hargraves, I mentioned, Marketing for Hippies. There's Julia Chanteray, Chanteray. She has The Joy of Business. There's loads of other good people online. The podcasts with Evangelist and Martin Aylward would be good places to start as well. So I hope that is useful for you. Happy marketing, happy sales, and I wish you well. Enjoyed this episode, subscribe to get more. And you can also leave us a review on iTunes, which helps with our rankings. So really appreciate that. Equally, if you want to support the podcast even more, then fund us. Go to Patreon, give us $1 per episode. Those of you who don't know, Patreon's a really good way of supporting things you want to see more of in the world. I know so much is available for free now. And, what I'd say is a lot of energy and effort goes into this podcast. I put it out there for free so everyone can get it. More than I work on this. Everyone that wants it can have it for free. And if you want to support us, it is really appreciated. So it's patreon.com/Mark Walsh. And of course, if you want any in-person training, you can visit embodiedfacilitator.com. There's loads more resources there too.
Till next time, welcome home to the body.